Yeah.
Ask the audience. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Legal Tech Week. It's August 22nd, and we're going to be talking about ILTACON, which just got done, and we've got plenty of other stuff to talk about, including, since it's about 3 p.m. here, we're going to be talking about 8 a.m., just to do some time jumping here, and a few other stories that have come up this week. I'm Bob Ambrogi. I have a blog called Law Sites and a podcast called Law Next. And we've got a special guest joining us today who was at ILTACON. So, Jeff, you want to kick off the introductions today?
Hello, everybody. I am Jeff Brandt. I'm the editor of the Pinhawk Law Technology Digest, and I also am the CIO at Jackson Kelly.
Thank you very much. And Steve, you want to go next?
Sure, Steve Embry. I write the blog Tech Law Crossroads. I also write for Above the Law. And as Jeff knows, I am an alum of Jackson Kelly.
That's right, too. I forgot that. And Victor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victor Lee. I am the assistant managing editor for the ABA Journal. I was not at ILTA, and I have no affiliation with Jackson Kelly at all. So, sorry.
That's what you're saying, anyway. All right. Just because you don't want to get blamed for being the guy with the handkerchief at ILTA, which we can explain. But,
In the words of Shaggy, it wasn't me.
Okay. All right. And Niki.
My name is Niki Black. I'm the principal legal insight strategist at 8 a.m. I think that's the first time I've ever actually said that out loud. And which is the parent company of my case, DocketWise Law Pay. And
8 a.m. my case, 8 a.m. Law Pay. Right?
Well,
Is that what you call it now?
I think it's.
Never mind.
I don't know if that's what you call it, or if it's more just that that's the parent company and that's how it's reflected in our branding.
Oh.
All
right.
Anyway, I write legal tech columns for ABA Journal, Above the Law, Daily Record, and I'm excited to be here.
All right. And Joe.
Joe Patrice. I'm from Above the Law and Thinking Like a Lawyer, the podcast. At 9 a.m., I am starting to work. I guess that's...
Now I'm confused about the whole 8 a.m. thing, because I thought the information they gave us said from now on our products will be, they gave like the whole list of things. It said
That
like
is
8 a.m. my case, 8 a.m.
That is what it said, yeah. And I just, I don't know what's going to happen in November when the time change happens and they go to be 7 a.m.
Gonna have to get a whole new color scheme and everything to go with it. No, well, we can talk about that in a bit, but I think we should we can start with talking about ILTA a little bit, and a couple of us had the good fortune to come home with COVID from ILTA, which had to do with the guy with the hanky or the napkin or something, which we're pretty sure was responsible for giving it to us, but we're not sure who it was. So if anybody out there knows who the guy with the napkin was, we'd like to speak with him.
If anybody has a legal tech vendor that they particularly hate that we can make baseless accusations about, please, we are prepared to say that they were the patient zero.
Exactly.
You know what? That's enough. Pipe down over there.
All right. So I thought I'd start with Jeff. Jeff was just telling me before we started recording that you have been to at least 35, maybe 38 ILTAs or something like that, which I guess you started going in kindergarten or something. I don't know how that happened, but
somewhere around there. So, of course,
yeah.
Before it was ILTA, it was LawNet. Before it was LawNet, it was VSLUG, which was the Wang VS Legal Users Group. And sadly, I do date back that far to Scottsdale, Arizona, and the heat and everything being there because nobody else wants to be in Arizona in August. So it was cheap, if nothing else. I've missed some for kids. I've missed some for job transitions and the virtual one and a couple others. But yeah, it was an interesting conference. It was funny. I was saying to Bob before, I ran into, Bob was one of them, multiple people one time. Normally I would see some of the same people again and again and again. You see them at the meal, see them at particular sessions, you see them in transition from going up and down the escalator or as you walk through the vendor hall and so on. In fact, I was going down the main escalators. Big Jim McKenna was coming up. He says, "Have you been here all week?" I think it was like Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. It's like, "Yeah, I've been here all week." First and only time I saw him at it. So it's what, 4,600 people, 320 vendors. I mean, it was record breaking in all those different ways. It is a long ways away from the original. Again, people laugh, but there was 24 people and you split into two rooms. You go to Wang WP Plus, you go to Wang, now I forget the name of the accounting system. Anyway, and that was it. That was the origin of ILTA as part of the Wang group. But so many different sessions. I said in the Pinhawk before ILTA started that I was going to be sick of AI and agentic AI and everything else. And indeed, I am sick of all those terms and how they've been used and abused. Joe had some great posts on the abuse of the words and the hype and so on. It was pretty amazing. I mean, if you had your BS meter on, it was probably going off left and right in many of the sessions. But still good content, still good networking. And honestly, my favorite piece, I had forgotten, I accepted all my vendor meals and so on for the evening and so on fairly early on. And then I forget who it was, invited me to Fogo de Chao. I haven't been to a Fogo de Chao in 25 years, maybe 30, at one of my favorite restaurants. And it was like, oh man, I'm bummed. I already accepted, otherwise I would certainly go to Fogo de Chao. So I scheduled myself on Sunday when I came in and put myself into a meat coma on Sunday evening as
You could
part
have
of
sent your
that.
AI
But
agent, and that would have been just as good.
you could have. I could have. But play with the rules and have it auto accept everything for me and just not show up. That wouldn't be fair. But like I said, it was great energy. The pirate scenes, the main stage and the musical area behind and the vendor area. I mean, it almost looked like you could take those out into the river and float and shoot some cannons. It was pretty amazing stuff. The quality of all of the theatrical production pieces just increases year after year after year. But like I said, the big thing for me, the takeaway was that I saw people one time. It's reached some kind of tipping point where I ran into somebody as I'm walking down or up and down the escalator, and I saw that person one time, and that was it. Didn't get quite the same kind of networking as you could otherwise.
Did any of those people, were any of them holding a napkin when you saw them?
No napkins that I am aware of,
Okay.
but some certainly were vendors. So
Good, good. All right. So what did others think? Victor, I know you weren't there, as you made clear, because you were off at Jackson Walker or something. But
I do love Fogo de Chao, though, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, so there was a preview. I wrote a couple of stories about it so far. I have another one in the tank, I think, but probably not gonna get done this week. But so, all right. So I took a little bit more of a cynical view of some of the stuff that happened, and like I don't really feel like I want to be cynical all the time. I do think that AI has, the people, more importantly, the legal vendors who are using AI to do things are doing some cool things. Uh, that said, I really, really, really got the sense as I walked around that there there's trouble on the horizon, to quote Behind the Music documentary. Storm clouds were growing around the band because the underlying foundational models, every bit of news I hear from them is that they're setting money on fire and making nothing. And that scares me to the extent that these companies base the good legal tech vendors are basing what they do on those models. I mean, it seems impossible to say that somebody like OpenAI is going to go out of business, but they're valued at like $500 billion and they make like 5 billion. And that strikes me as not, I mean, I'm no math whiz, but that strikes me as a problem for them. And it seems like if they were to go away, that matters. And so one of the trends that I saw at this conference was more people willing to kind of admit that maybe the underlying hype cycle, if not the legal tech side of it, and some people had quite problems with that too, but the underlying AI cycle may be in trouble. And what does that mean? And I heard from some folks that no one, none of the big vendors were willing to say exactly the sentence I said, but I definitely heard some things that suggested they were thinking about it. Thomson Reuters talking about investing in companies and scientists who can build small language models to handle more stuff. The Lexis people really kind of leaning into we test everything and we could swap things in and out. Just the way in which everybody talked about their how unreliant they were on underlying which specific foundational models struck me as interesting.
Yeah, I wrote a very I don't know, I don't even know how to describe what I wrote because what struck me, I felt my sort of overall takeaway was this just incredible energy at the conference that I don't remember feeling at a conference in a while. I mean, every so often I'll go to a conference where I feel it, but I kind of felt like, frankly, ILTA and some of the other major conferences had kind of fallen into this level of drudgery where it's like the same old year after year and more contract lifecycle management software and more e-discovery products. And it was funny because some of us on our Slack channel for this show kind of started out on the Sunday morning that ILTA was going to start, all kind of saying, I don't know if I really even want to go. It's just like another, I don't have the energy for it. I'm kind of not all that enthused about it. And then I got there and I just felt, there is. So sure, there's hype around it, and some of this stuff is going to flop phenomenally, and there's going to be bubbles bursting and all of that other stuff. But there is this level of energy in the legal tech industry that I don't remember feeling for a while, and there is a level of creativity and innovation. There are some really interesting products coming out. There are areas of the tech sector, of the legal tech, there are areas of law practice that are being better served now by tech than they've ever been before with new products coming out. We've talked about litigation and PI lawyers a lot here. Steve's written a lot about that. And I just felt like all of that kind of colored the conference. Like my post, I happened to be realizing that it was also the anniversary of Woodstock and Grace Slick getting up and declaring a new dawn. And I had been like having this phrase going through my head of it's like a new dawn of legal tech. As a matter of fact, Steve and I did a podcast at the conclusion of it that ended up not getting recorded, unfortunately. But I think we kind of talked about that in the podcast. If only it had been memorialized, it would have been a great podcast. But I don't know. I was really energized by it.
Oh, they hallucinated a podcast, everybody. That's what I take away from that conversation.
It's more. Well, it sounds like we've now heard the yin and the yang of ILTA.
Exactly.
Bob and Joe.
Exactly.
I will say that I'm somewhere in between. How about that? I mean, there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of hype. There was a lot of talk. People were energized. I think part of that is it's something new and different that hasn't been there before that everybody's latching on to. Like sometimes I think, what the hell did we talk about before we had AI at these conferences? Frankly, I can't remember. But
The
sort
cloud.
of like
Contract lifecycle
cloud.
management software.
Yeah, there you go. E-discovery maybe. But I do sort of wonder, like Joe, and we've had this conversation with you have, you know, OpenAI and Anthropic and Perplexity, and I mean the problem that everybody cites with those companies is, well, it's all public, it's not confidential, they hallucinate too much. but I can't help thinking that they're all. It's not like this is a secret to those guys. Oh, somebody said we don't keep it confidential and we hallucinate. Oh my God! I mean, I got to think that they're really working on it, and so I wonder where it's all going to be headed at some point. I mean, those companies have a bit of a head start in a lot of areas, and if they move into legal and become a big competitor there, what's going to happen? So I don't know that we know the answer quite yet to a lot of that stuff, but it's a lot of interesting questions.
Yeah.
If I can transition to the second of my stories about it real quick, because it's an aspect of this conference that we haven't quite talked about yet. I don't like the phrase agentic. I think it's dumb, but a lot of people talk about it. So what was the sense on agentic? I kind of came in being told that that was the term of the year. I don't. Yeah, and I think it actually is kind of in some ways, in that a lot of people are talking about it. I have been on record that I think it is a poor strategy for selling to lawyers, because I feel like the promise of agentic AI, the autonomy that it's supposed to bring, is what in our business we call malpractice. And so I don't think it's a good way of selling to them. But in defense of that, I sat in a briefing where I counted it up from I kept the transcript going, where agentic was mentioned like 47 times over the course of the half hour. And I'll say, though, of that product, I won't name which product it was. When I really sat down and thought about it, what they were pitching wasn't what I would consider agentic in any common parlance of that term. It was, it was essentially it was essentially taking a prompt you could easily put into one chatbot right now and saying, oh, it'll assign it to different models along the way. And I was like, okay, that's a thing, but that's not what these companies who are trying to get big dollars call agentic, and that's not what the common understanding of that is. And so my takeaway was just, please don't use that term in legal, and you'll probably do better. The products that you're trying to call agentic are absolutely sellable to lawyers, so long as you don't tag them with the idea that maybe they'll go out and HAL 9000 your case.
I don't know why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you talked about that when we were there, Joe, and I
Yeah.
thought about it. I tend to think you're right. I mean, I think part of it is a lot of these things that the agentic AI is supposed to do is sort of like the natural evolution of the AI to begin with. It's like it's not
Yeah.
surprising, it's not shocking. It's like, oh yeah, well, I figured it would do that sooner or later. And so the danger from it all is people are going to go to these shows and they're going to hear agentic AI. Oh, great, great. What is it? What's it going to do? And then all of a sudden they're like, that's no big deal. Lord, but I
Yeah,
thought it
I
would
don't
do
know.
that already.
Or,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we've seen this before, like with any technology that comes to the pike, immediately it gets big and everyone has to have it, or everyone has to say that they have it in their products. Like, oh, we have predictive coding, or oh, we have generative AI. I think agentic AI is just the next one. It's like we have to have it, or show that we have it, or say that we have it. Otherwise, no one's going to pay attention to us, and no one's going to talk about us. I mean, I don't know. I kind of agree with Joe. I don't like the term agentic AI. I assume that it was based on agency and not like secret agent. But like when I hear like agent, I think, oh, that could be dangerous. Like that's something that doesn't necessarily strike hope into my heart. It's something that when I hear agent, I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound good. So I don't know. Maybe that was um, like a fumble by whoever coined the phrase. Actually, I don't know who coined the phrase. But I will give them bonus points for alliteration because that's always a good thing. But yeah, it's a term that definitely brings up a lot of problematic scenarios, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help when people already kind of are suspicious of it.
well, and I think
I don't get why everybody's so. Go ahead, Niki. Sorry.
I think the problem we're facing is, first of all, that we always face, which is this is how the technologists define and talk about these terms. And then how does this get translated out to the user bases? And then when we try to, this is sort of the issue Stephanie was trying to deal with, just defining it. When we try to define it in a way that makes sense to push out to the user bases and to customers and stuff, all the technologists are like, well, that's not what it is. But in the meantime, so that's one issue that comes to mind. The other thing that comes to mind is, and so that's where agentic AI is coming from, like I think the phrase. But then when it comes to this issue of whether they should or shouldn't be using it, it just sort of harkens back to me to like AI, where initially everyone was using, and then they realized it terrified the lawyers, and the lawyers wouldn't use their product if it had AI in it. So they backtracked and they stopped talking about AI and just talked about the features and the functionality. And I think we're at that same stage here where it's this cool new thing, and they're going to start to realize that the concerns that Joe is mentioning, this idea that it's just going to go out and go rogue and practice law for you, are very real concerns for most lawyers that are trying to wrap their minds around what this even means. And so I think you're going to see this backtrack when it comes to, we have agentic AI, and people are going to stop using it and instead just talk about what can be accomplished in the software tools. And then the other thing I did want to mention, at least where we can come back to when we're done with this discussion, I did want to throw in my take on ILTA, but maybe we should wrap this up first.
Well, I just want to say on the agentic AI, I'm not troubled by it at all. I think, in fact, you're all right that this is just AI, but it's a further evolution of AI, and it brings a new level of capabilities to AI. And I think it's legitimate if, in fact, a product is truly using agentic AI, which is a real thing. It's not a made up thing. I mean, yes, maybe some people are just like Joe, I think, said in your article, some people are just calling automations agentic AI when it's not really agentic AI. But agentic AI is a real thing. It's something that's capable of performing, multi-step tasks and bringing back result as a result of that. And I don't think it could be fertile ground for malpractice, but it doesn't have to be. It shouldn't be, no more than just general AI should be ground for malpractice. It's being misused by lawyers who don't check their sites and don't check the results, and therefore they commit malpractice. But the same with agentic AI, it's going to be bringing back results to you, and you're still ultimately the one who's going to be responsible for checking that and ensuring the veracity of it.
That's the key. That's the key. I mean, we're talking about, to Joe's point in terms of malpractice, there are many, many tasks that true agentic AI can be used on the administrative side of a firm and get lots of benefits and so on in that respect. But when you have, and as long as, I think Joe used the term lawyer in the loop, or somebody did. So as long as you've got the lawyer in the loop, and the lawyer's paying attention and being part of that. I mean, that's the problem you've got right now with generative AI. I can't say there's nothing wrong. Yes, it will hallucinate depending on what you're using and how you're prompting and so on. But you should know that by now. Judges should be handing out, in my opinion, serious sanctions when you ignore those pieces or you're ignorant of those pieces. But it is not an issue per se with the technology. It is an issue with bad or sloppy lawyering. And we don't need additional rules really as part of that, or I guess maybe evidence and some of the pieces where you've now got the AI generated evidence and how you necessarily need to deal with the validation that it's legit and not AI generated. But it's again, you look at that, and I look at the numbers and stats and so on for e-discovery. So my first job out of college was complex litigation support. E-discovery was not a term that existed at that point in time. And the number of attorneys that truly understand and use e-discovery tools and know it well is a small percentage after decades of advancement in the e-discovery field. So is AI going to be any better than that? Is it going to be marketed better? Is the hype going to be? Is it going to be more generally available? Because we're not talking about just litigators, but there's a lot of danger on the people side. So people, process, technology, right? So if your process isn't good and your people are in the way and are causing issues, the technology, God help you, no matter how good it is.
Did anybody see any true agentic AI tools that were being offered by vendors? Because I frankly did not.
Yeah,
at least
closest I saw
were
closest I saw were some of the billing stuff. Some of the billing stuff was able to kind of do that because it came up in the chat over here. I view agentic as the cyber example is where it makes the most sense, where you say, where you don't want a human in a loop. You want to say, hey, if somebody tries to incur in this system, blow it up, and some hacker invents a new virus that no one's ever seen before, the agent goes, wait a minute, I don't know what this is, but this looks bad. I'm going to blow it up anyway. Like that's what you want an agent to be doing because you are empowering it with the goals and kind of the general parameters, and it can figure out, oh, wait, this is a thing I got to act on. And that's where that kind of thing makes sense. That's what agentic theoretically is. And that's where I don't want to I don't want the practice of law to get into that. I do think billing, there's some examples where that could be useful. There's some other back office stuff that makes sense. But when it's dealing with the research stuff, it just seems like I use the term kind of like a glorified batch file of prompts. It just is replacing executables with prompts in my mind, which is different.
But it's not a batch file because it's making it's making elective decisions as it goes through it that are not.
But it's not.
Well,
But
it is.
Well, none of the ones we saw.
Thomson Reuters Co-Counsel was a good example. I thought.
Well, no, Thomson Reuters. But what it did was you said, hey, here's a file, go. And the decisions it made were it entered a prompt that was read all this stuff and identify claims. Then it said, based on that prompt, go research these claims. Based on the results of that prompt, go write a thing. Like that's a series of if-then statements.
But it's making decisions about where to research it, how to research it, which tools to use, what kinds of results.
It's researching it in Westlaw.
No, but
in practical law and other resources and part of the Thomson Reuters library. Yeah.
Right, but listen, and this is where once you start to combine the business and the practice of law together, where either it's through integrations or just software tools that a particular company owns that are all accessible via integration or just accessible behind the prompt, if you will, that's when it becomes really useful because you can be like, hey, I want to accomplish this task into the generative AI chatbot, right? And the chatbot can say, well, how do we accomplish this task on their behalf, given the tools that we have available to them based upon the subscriptions that they pay for, or the tools that they have, are tools that they use. And then it can decide which tools to use and then which functions to pull from those tools. Do I have to go to the cases? Do I have to go to the financial data? Do I have to go to the documents in that data? And then what is it that I have to do with this data that I'm accessing? And then do I have to analyze it? Do I have to put it into a chart for them to give them results that are usable results? Those are all things that it does. Just because it's not an agentic browser that goes out into the internet and does stuff doesn't mean that it's not agentic and is therefore making decisions and choices about where to go within the system and the data sets that are available to it to provide the output requested by the user through the generative AI interface. And behind it has all these different agentic tools that provide the information to the generative AI interface, conversational chatbot, and then give the user what they've requested.
Exactly.
I think going forward, we should have a show where we have because we should move on to other topics. But I do want to have a show that gets into the philosophical question of, are a series of if-then statements making decisions? And I don't think that reaches the level of decision making that I think a lot of the conversation would talk about. But I think that could be a whole 20 minutes.
I mean, we haven't created a human. We haven't created a human agent.
Well, see, but
it's
see,
still
that's
software.
the thing.
And you can still program how it makes those decisions. I mean, there's still programming involved, and you're still ultimately guiding it. But you're giving it license to do things that.
When you watch
but a program will only understand data to a certain point. So
right.
I've been highlighting a lot of articles recently in my Pinhawk on data poisoning, right? It's universal, right? From the very first computers, garbage in, garbage out. AI is that on steroids.
Yeah, I will say, I've watched some of on the cybersecurity side of it, I've watched some of what they view, and those things are making decisions. Those things are deciding based on a series of parameters. Hey, this is a problem I've never seen before, but based on what you've told me about what I should look out for, I've decided I'm going to look out for that. That seems way different than, do you have a subscription to that? That's just so much more cabined than what they're doing over in that world.
But it's just a version of it. It's a spectrum, right? At least I think it's like a spectrum of agentic activity, right? I don't think that's just if then. It's what is the user asking me? What information does the user want? They're saying they want financial analytics on the billable hours and the revenue generated and across all of the different associates and compare it to, I don't know, historical bases or something. I have no idea. And then, well, what tools are available? Where would they, and this isn't research, right? But what tools are available? Where would we get this information from? And what would be the most useful output that would give them this information they needed? That's, so they can compare it all. I mean, I think that those are not just if-thens. Maybe we could sit down.
I totally agree with you, Niki. It's much more sophisticated than that. I mean, you may, Joe, you may
if I
not
were
be
to
impressed with the
paraphrase Niki-
technology, but it's more sophisticated than what you're describing.
I would agree.
I mean-
Paraphrase Niki that the current generation and crop of AI we have now is certainly on the spectrum.
Yeah.
as is this panel. We should.
That's also true.
I did
Yeah,
want
we
to
should
throw
move
in
on.
into the hat my assessment of ILTACON. I wrote about it for ABA Journal, but it hasn't been published yet. Just quickly.
So then you
But
can't tell
like,
us. Victor's going to get mad.
Victor, aren't you on vacation? Someone else looked at it.
Actually, it just got published, and yeah, I was going to edit it today when I got back, but somebody emailed it to someone else in the journal, so I could not look at it.
I emailed it to you, and it got bounced back to send it to somebody else.
No, I think it went to my whatever.
Anyway, go ahead. Tell us.
Well, to me, it really felt like the wild, wild west. Like everything just felt unhinged. Some of it was, and I didn't really talk about this in the article because I didn't want to get political. Some of it just felt like the stuff that Joe alluded to and others have in their posts and articles about it. Like there's all this stuff going on in DC, and here we are in this little freaking post-apocalyptic bubble, hanging out in the Gaylord. And so that was in the back of my mind too, but more just like, it just felt like the wild, wild west. It felt like people were just kind of this gleeful sort of, and I didn't put this in the article either, but almost like a tech bro energy, because I didn't want to like dive into that. I tried to use a little more neutral terms, but it just felt like this gleeful, like no holds barred, like we can do whatever the hell we want. And this is a free for all. And let's throw our hat in the ring in case we get acquired. And all these little startups, and everyone's trying to get like acquired, and everyone's trying to, or like get big investments, and everyone thinks they're going to bank in on this AI thing. And meanwhile, like the big players are like trying to innovate, but the models are changing so quickly that they keep changing direction and coming up with new names and acting like, oh no, we were doing that, but now we're doing this. And it's all just moving so fast. Not to mention, which, we disagreed about whether this was appropriate or not, but one of the large companies had a party with a scantily clad woman in a hugely oversized, a contortionist, scantily clad woman in a hugely oversized champagne glass. And I was like, what is this, like 2015 illegal week with a half-naked angel standing out there in the 30-degree weather, those like women? Boy, did we really just go backwards like a decade because of, is that more than a decade? I have more than a decade? Whatever, like, what is happening? And so for me, it just felt completely kind of unhinged, kind of like the gold rush, kind of like everyone's just trying to cash in before this thing completely derails, because it feels like it's going to derail soon and we don't know what's going to happen. So I just thought that it left me feeling super unsettled. And so I had fun. I loved hanging out with you guys, but it was a weird conference, and it's a weird time to be covering tech, and it's just a weird time to kind of be existing, I think.
The scantily clad
So
woman
is
is
someone
one of
going
the
to
most
do the
tone-deaf
over and
things I've
under
seen
on
for
the
a while.
vendors that won't be there next year?
Yeah, right. That'd be a good bet to had to throw in the ring on. Yeah, good bet. What was that, Bob?
I said the scantily clad woman was definitely the most tone-deaf thing I'd seen at a conference for a while. Since the last time I saw a scantily clad woman at a legal tech conference.
A lot of people argued with me that it was perfectly fine, so I was pretty
it was really
offended, and I was
bizarre.
about ready to leave. But fortunately, she kept trying to get back up there, and they kept pulling her down. So I couldn't have been the only one that was like, "What the hell was that?" So we'll see. But it was interesting.
Yeah. Who was it? Was it at ILTA? No. What conference was it where somebody else always used to do a big party with like a lot of scantily clad women in weird, even weirder costumes and stuff? I don't know. I think I do know, but
I
I'm not
didn't
sure.
get invited
I'm not sure.
to that party.
Well, others in this room have been at that party too, I think.
It just made me feel really uncomfortable as a professional woman. And someone said to me, well, this next conference we're going to, there's like a strip club across the way, and I bet the execs will go to that. I said, good, let them go to it. That's really different than putting it in the middle of a professional networking event. What are you talking about? So this whole thing got me pretty worked up. I had fun writing the article, I guess, but it was not my favorite conference ever. Although they did a really good job. I point that out. It was very well run, I thought. they were very thoughtful in the implementation and the way that they did it. It wasn't the conference itself, it was the state that we're in right now.
And a lot of people
Yeah.
like the Gaylord. I mean, I hate the other Gaylord, the Nashville Gaylord, as I've written about and others have agreed, I think. But people kind of like this Gaylord. Even it's kind of a weird place, National Harbor, but
Yeah.
it kind of works for a conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would also agree with Nikki on both counts, but I was struck by the fact that how well run it was. I mean, things happened when they were supposed to happen. If things were organized, the things flowed correctly. The speakers were by and large pretty good and pretty prepared. And I really thought ILTA did a nice job in putting it on, just the logistics of it all.
Joy, her crew, and the volunteers deserve top notch for pulling off the biggest conference yet. I mean, in many ways, they keep getting bigger and better. But kudos. Well, and something I don't think we've done enough of in recent years. Kudos to all of the Gaylord staff and all the work that they did to accommodate 4,400, 4,600 people. I mean, I like the Gaylords. The one in Nashville is a little humid for me, but I don't know that, Bob, it works per se. When you have to have 10 overflow hotels, I don't know that that's really works.
I was right
Well,
across. I
and
was in an overflow hotel, but it didn't bother me at all. I liked getting out of there at the end of the day.
so
Yeah, me too.
I will say, yeah, I also was across the street. Honestly, I think in the DC Gaylord, being across the street means you get to the floor faster than if you have to rely on the Gaylord's own emails, internet,
Exactly.
elevators.
Exactly.
I'll say, like, and I talk about this in the AI bubble piece because I ranted for a long time. The National Harbor Gaylord is the best place to host a conference, period, because it is not just a conference center, but there's stuff around it. There's like
Right.
this little fake city that you can go to and do all these things. And while I guess Niki's conference involves strip clubs, this doesn't, probably for the better. But it has, all of these restaurants, all these places. You don't get that awkward point where the vendor who didn't get in first on the one restaurant in the hotel, it has to take you forever off. Like, I really appreciate whenever we can be in National Harbor. Like, I don't love DC proper, and I don't think I would want to live in National Harbor, but it is an amazing setup for a conference.
Wait a minute, is it the Kaleidoscope conference that has the strip clubs across the street? She wasn't clear on that. I hope not. We'll find out.
Pretty sure that wasn't
Mean.
it. I don't remember which one it was this person was referring to.
All right,
Oh,
good. Speaking of Kaleidoscope, I mean, I know there's a lot to talk about today, but I did want to hit on and Niki, I don't know whether you want to comment or not, but the rebranding this week of AffiniPay, which I think we've all kind of maybe heard rumors that this was coming for a while, and I know I had a conversation with Drew probably a year ago in which he talked about the fact that they were working on a rebranding. In rebrand, the rebrand, if anybody out there hadn't heard, AffiniPay is rebranded at 8 a.m. as we said at the beginning of the show, and I think it obviously kind of had to happen sooner or later because it's not just a payments company anymore, and I mean, kind of spearheaded by the acquisition of MyCase and all the whole portfolio of companies MyCase brought with it. It didn't make sense to call it by a payments name anymore, and I don't know. I wouldn't envy any company rebranding as anything these days. It's not an easy process to come up with a catchy, unused, catch-all kind of a name. I thought it was interesting. I'm still on the fence about what I think about it. Just because there's been a lot of time jokes going around, like Joe's earlier one about what happens when the clocks change. Uh, but I think overall it kind of works, and we'll all in a few months we'll all kind of forget about the fact that it's a new name, and we'll just get used to it.
It's 8 a.m. someplace, so somewhere, 8 a.m. somewhere.
exactly.
Or 8:41 right now, but yeah.
I think you did a really good job explaining it, Bob. And I mean, we're really excited about it, and everyone's really energized. And it's just having had a bunch of companies get acquired at the same time, and it's and creating a new company culture behind that, and everyone sort of feeling like we're all on the same page. The new name makes us all feel like that. You know what I mean? It really helps move that what we'd already been working towards forward. And I totally get that everyone's going to have an opinion on a name like that, and the fact what you touched on, that coming up with a name is really challenging. That's not trademarked, and that you can do, and our teams worked so hard on this for such a long time. Really, it was I wasn't super involved with the rebrand. It was sort of outside the subset of what I do, but they worked so hard on it, and it was such an incredible team effort across the board. I mean, it was really, there's so much work that goes into it, just from the website switch over alone. I mean, everyone worked so hard, and I get it that rebrands, no one's going to like every name, and I think it's a great name. I love the idea of, in the start of the day when everything's fresh and you're ready to like tackle the day and get things done, and that's what we want to help our customers do. So, and I think that over time, what you said, it just becomes a name that everyone starts to become used to, and it is the name that they associate with all of what we do, help professionals run their firms efficiently and profitably. I mean, that's what we do. And so, I don't know, we were super excited about it. It was a ton of work that went into this. So I appreciate your
my write-up in my write-up of it, I actually pivoted away from the like start of the day part, because I thought what was good about it, as like the pitch of it that I thought made the most sense, is to the extent these are offerings that help you do the parts of being a lawyer that you don't necessarily want to do, like all of the business side of law, whatever. That like I think about 8 a.m. in a law office, which is generally empty because no self-respecting client's going to call you till 9. But that 8 to 9 hour is the hour you do those things, and so I cottoned to the idea of the 8 a.m. name on the idea that it's about giving you that 8 to 9 hour, that 8 to 9 hour where you aren't doing law, but you're doing my bills, my like catch up on, make sure that I've got all my alerts set for docketing and yada, yada, yada. So I liked it on
Wordle.
that front. Yeah. Well, and Wordle. If it gives you back your Wordle, then that's part of it too.
I loved that. I love all your articles in general, and some parts of that one made me laugh out loud, like the Lexus 2 a.m. reference, like when you've gone down a rabbit hole and you're going the wrong place. But yeah, no, I love that part because that's a great way to look at it. Like it just sort of gives you that time back, and that's a billable hour back a day if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
When we pull data from our system, when I would write the benchmark reports about the value of time tracking tools or the time saved within invoicing, just the time saved with those two features alone paid for the billing, the entire software, like of my case, because that's where the data been pulled from, in and of itself for each week,
Yeah.
for each month. So, it's the same concept of it. And so I like how you kind of tied it back to that idea that it gets you that hour back and gets rid of a lot of the tedious stuff that we didn't go to law school for,
Yeah. That's the part that resonated with me.
Now hand off to AI. So
And I appreciate how, I appreciate how much work you guys must have done. Because I mean, when we changed our logo like a few years ago to the ABA, like that was so much work. And we kept the name, we kept all the other stuff, but we just changed the logo, and that was a lot of work that we had to like. You got to change all the signs, you got to change all the stuff on the walls, you got to do all that. So yeah, I mean, just completely coming up with a new new name and everything is gonna. I imagine that was a huge undertaking. So. I do echo Garrett's comment that I'm glad you guys didn't go with AffiniPay AI. So yeah, I'm glad you guys didn't go that route.
kind of creative though. I like it.
Yeah, I'm sure that was thought about. Okay. All right. Well, it's been we haven't done a good lawyer hallucination story for what, like probably since our last show. At least it's been that long. But Victor, you've got in light of Jeff's comments earlier about how people need to come down hard on lawyer hallucinations, you've got a kindness judge showing kindness to a hallucinating lawyer.
Well, so this is the part of the news segment, all our news segments where they have like the fuzzy, like the dog comes home, or the
Feel good.
the feel good story. So Yeah, there was a hallucination in the Eastern District, before a federal magistrate judge in the Eastern District of New York. This lawyer submitted 3 hallucinated cases in a court filing, but then I guess, she threw herself on the mercy of the court and was just like, I've had a lot of, I'm really, really sorry about it. I've had a lot of stuff that I've been dealing with. I think she had some personal issues, some personal tragedies, and her husband had died as well. And so the judge was, very, very was actually quite nice about it, and declined to impose monetary penalties and everything like that, and was actually quite kind and quite cool about it, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. So it's just it was a nice feel good story for us. I felt like we read a lot about we read a lot about hallucinations and how lawyers should be more responsible. But look, sometimes life does get in the way, right? Sometimes stuff happens, and I mean, yeah, arguably, I'm sure this could have turned out real badly for the lawyer, and if they'd gotten in front of a different judge or someone who wasn't as understanding of personal circumstances or tragedies and whatnot. So look, I've obviously you still should check your work and still should make sure everything's done correctly. But sometimes, yeah, shit happens, and it's not always like the end of the world when these things happen. And I'm glad that at least some judge was able to just not come down really hard. But I mean, and hopefully this lawyer will learn a lesson from this and will be more careful next time.
Well, and I would modify, having read Victor's article, I would modify my, that was certainly a huge set of extenuating circumstances in that particular case. But I would argue that that is, 0.01% of the hallucination cases, and the others should be fined and sanctioned heavily because people are just not learning. And it's sloppiness, not because of external circumstances would be my viewpoint. But in that case, I am glad the judge had some leniency, because I think there were a lot of circumstances there that, with the death of the husband and so on, that certainly are worth consideration.
All right. So if you're going to hallucinate, make sure you have a good excuse. It goes down to.
Boy, what an empathetic guy Bob is.
Yeah.
Well, certainly don't double down. Like, I mean, wasn't there one lawyer like double down on it, or like tried to like act like it was no big deal, whatever? Yeah, certainly don't do that. I mean, if you're gonna expect mercy, you gotta ask for it. You gotta throw yourself, do the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. There was one of the early hallucination cases had that too, where the lawyer kind of threw themselves at the mercy of the court and said, yeah, I know I screwed up and I knew it was wrong and I won't ever do it again. And it was also a kind of a lenient outcome on that one. I forget which one.
Well, and a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, that's legitimate, but that's not, it's August of 2025. That's not a legitimate piece anymore. I mean,
agree.
Right. By the way, I will also say for anybody listening from like Clio or something, back to what Victor just said, 8.23 yards. You got to do, or 8.23 meters. You got to do the whole 8.23 meters. I had to convert it for them. But yeah, no, I mean, like that's the thing with this hallucination stuff. Like there were people calling for the heads of those poor Avianca people. And they were, the canaries in the mine. And so I actually felt bad for them. But right now, if you screw up, you really have to be begging because you don't really have an excuse.
Yeah.
Well, and when you look at what is your responsibility, I mean, we just modified some of this internally. It's not just your work, not just the work that somebody's performing for you in your firm, junior associate, paralegal, whatever. If you are co-counsel, national counsel, local counsel, expert witness. I mean, was it Anthropic where their head researcher used their own tool and it hallucinated about the tool itself. I mean, you have to know when it's used and that the proper due diligence has been taken care of. I mean, that's even as my degree is in computer science and math, right? Even I can understand that in the professional rules.
All right. Well, last but not least, on-premises software, the real risk.
I mean,
Nikki,
forget AI. Let's talk about, the cloud. Um, and
we're still talking about it. That's what's
I know,
funny.
right? Well, listen. So, we're talking about. I wrote about it here on the why the cloud is far more secure than premises software, which I feel like we should have been talking about 10 years ago, or at least 5 years ago, and this shouldn't even be an issue now. But the reason it really kind of got under my skin, this issue really got under my skin was um, we'd received a note, and I think I may have talked about this on the last one. I just hadn't written my article yet, but our accountant's offices was breached because of on-premises SharePoint. And we received notification of that, and they basically weren't talking to anyone about it, which was super annoying. But it was the tax organizers and all underlying data was breached, which is pretty significant. And then, and that was, they'd been breached in February, but then now there's a whole new wave of SharePoint breaches that are impacting hundreds of governmental agencies and businesses across the country. Same concept, on-premises SharePoint, and all the data and documents that are in them have been breached, including like a U.S. nuclear facility organization. I can't remember the name of the organization, but it's in my article. But and when I was trying to research
The
accountants,
courts,
right,
the PACER system.
yeah, when I was trying to research accountants to find another one, I kept trying to check what tools they used for client files, and all that appeared was ShareFile. Whether it was ShareFile online or ShareFile, premises based, I'm not sure. I would have had to talk to all of them. But this idea that all these professional organizations, in particular, people that have provide professional services, lawyers, accountants, et cetera, have been historically just reluctant to give up their server in the basement or their server in the copy room, and they have continued to sort of use these clunky systems instead of just moving. And some companies have continued to provide these premises-based tools instead of migrating them into the cloud. And so, and now you end up with this, and it was an unbelievably significant breach for other people, not just for me. But, on top of all the Equifax stuff that's already out there, now there's this, and my kids too. It's pretty upsetting. Although my kids were exposed in some school system breach that happened 2 years ago. So I guess, and I think that the other thing that was really interesting was when I talked to my financial manager about it. He's like, "Well, isn't all our stuff just out there?" I kind of feel like it's super sad that that's what we've come to. Like, all our stuff is out there. Doesn't matter how it's being stored. We're all just, everything's getting breached, whether it's social engineering or, blunt force breaches, hacking in. So I just wanted to write the article to emphasize again, I've been doing this for more than a decade. Like, come on, just get in the cloud already. There's no better time than now. And guess what? You're not going to be able to take advantage of all these AI benefits if you're not in the cloud, probably. So move to the cloud. So that's what my article was about.
There's also sort of a time connection to this in the sense that I just had on my podcast this week the CEO of Reveal, the e-discovery company. But one of the things that they just recently launched is this thing called Reveal Private Deployment, which is a sort of an initiative to support their customers who want to stay on premises. And it was kind of a direct response. I don't know if you all remember when Relativity earlier this year said, we're going to tell all of our customers that by, what was it, 2018, no, 2018, 2028 or something like that, everybody's going to have to be in their cloud application and off of their on-premises software, which is kind of a big deal since Relativity started, built this reputation as an on-premises software. So Relativity is telling all their cloud customers, you need to be in the cloud. Reveal is saying, we'll support you wherever you are. And clearly it was a competitive response to what Relativity is doing. But there's so many conversations I keep having with different companies where they're trying to get their customers to move to their cloud versions, but the customers like where they are. And part of it is the whole security thing. They feel like they're much more secure in an on-premises instance.
Well, I think there's a key piece, and I need to think of a new analogy. How many people on the panel remember Ron Popeil? So Ron Popeil is the godfather, for those of you not in the know and don't have any gray hair. Ron Popeil is the godfather of infomercials, right? And so one of the things that I have used over the decades on security is his old tagline for the rotisserie oven: set it and forget it, right? You put your meat in the oven, you press a couple buttons, you set it, and you forget about it until perfect roast or whatever chicken comes out. Security is not that way. And there are still too many firms that are keeping that mentality. They're trying to do security on their own. It is not possible. If you're a firm of a certain size, below AmLaw 300 maybe, you can't do security yourself. I mean, you need to outsource. You need to have partners. You cannot put these things, set it and forget it. It's going to come back and bite you in a big old way.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's still a lot of the old, well, nobody's interested in my stuff anyway, so I don't have to worry.
Well, or my firm doesn't do national
Right. Yeah.
issues, so nobody's going to hack us. Well, all
Right.
you need is one disgruntled person that's got access to a computer and some AI hacking tools, and you can be breached.
Just in the moment we have left, just a quick kind of, I guess, in memoriam. I just want to acknowledge the death this week of Kaylee Wallstead, who I think a lot of us knew. She was the chief strategy officer at the electronic discovery reference model, which she and Mary Mack had acquired back a few years ago. Really kind of a pillar of the e-discovery community, and in many ways of the much broader legal tech community. So very sad to have heard of that. Way too young for her to have passed. Anything else? Any good of the order before we wrap up today? Anything else?
I just wanted to say with Kaylee, I think really fondly of her because during the pandemic, remember that EDRM virtual conference where there was that boat ride we all went on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I
That
met
was
her.
fun.
I was like wandering around by myself and I couldn't get the boat to work, and she jumped on it with someone else and they're like, "Hey, what's your name? Let's go for a boat ride." And she was just so much fun and so warm. And when I finally met her in person, she was like that then too. But we were like laughing out loud, and I look back and I remember that's one of the first times I really like felt like I was not in the house and out doing something and laughing out loud, like I was truly on a boat.
Yeah.
And when I think of her, that's just what I think of her. And it was just such a sad loss. I'll miss her.
Yep.
And we
Agreed.
did an episode of this show from that virtual platform.
Right. Yeah.
We did. We also did the Monroe County Bar Association Solo and Small Firm Conference. We contracted with EDRM to use that virtual conference thing, and I kept accidentally walking up onto the stage and falling off when there was like a presentation going on. I wasn't supposed to be up there. I kept getting stuck, but it was just so funny. I loved that platform they had.
All right. Well, thanks to Jeff. Thanks for sitting in with us today, and thanks to everybody else for joining us today. And see you all next week. Have a good week.
Oh, well.
Take care, everybody.